Now, when you talk about something as fraught as what happened in a town like Buczacz, and for that matter, in many, many other genocides as well, as I said, initially, my question was, how does genocide happen? That is, when Germans came to a town like Buczacz, I did not believe that they had simply dehumanized the victims and then didn't see them anymore as human beings, and then it was easy to kill them. That's the usual kind of explanation. I thought they must have gotten to know some of those people. They were not just killing people they didn't know. They were there. They were killing them one-on-one. It was not like the extermination camps where you never actually saw your victim, or people in neighborhoods, nice neighborhoods in Berlin, who just saw their Jewish neighbors being put on a train and shipped off to the east. This all happened in one place. And so when I started looking at that town, I realized that indeed the Germans got to know the Jews. They were their cleaners, they were their babysitters, they were using them until at some point they killed them. So that was one thing that I discovered. But the other was that obviously it wasn't just about Jews and Germans. In that town, as in many, many other towns, hundreds of towns, there were others there. And in the case of Buczacz, as in much of the rest of Eastern Galicia, there were Poles and Ukrainians. And so the event is not only an event of the Germans coming and killing the Jews and the Poles and the Ukrainians watching. First of all, people do what people do. You live in an apartment house. The family on the fourth floor, which has a nice view and has a piano, has just been taken out and shot. Maybe a couple of them were shot on the street. The rest were shot on a nearby hill. You hear the shots. You see the blood. You know they're gone. And they were friends of yours. Their daughter studied for school with your daughter. But now the apartment is empty. If you don't move in, the neighbors from the third floor are going to move in. So you move in. You haven't done anything. You haven't collaborated, but there's a nice apartment with a piano. So why not you? Why others? This is what happens in these sort of cases. And that can lead, obviously, to all kinds of other views of what happened and to how you speak about it subsequently, right? So what I'm saying is that this is a much more complex social scene. Secondly, when Jews testify, many of the Jewish testimonies are really not so much about the Germans. Jews from that area, those who survived and talked about it, speak mostly about their neighbors because they knew their neighbors better than they knew the Germans, and because they depended on their neighbors. Because the only way to survive was if somebody helped you. If somebody who was not a Jew helped you. And it was rare, there were some cases, but it was rare the Germans would help you. So you needed shelter from your neighbors, from villagers, from people who had worked with your father or knew your grandfather, or somehow to find shelter. At the same time, those who were sheltered, the only way for the Germans to find out where they were, because they didn't know the area, they didn't know the languages, they couldn't distinguish between one person and another, was denunciation. And so the experience of Jews who speak about that time is very much about their neighbors. They often start by saying, oh, the Ukrainians, they were all murderers. And then they tell the story of how they survived, and you can see that their story is a story of rescue and betrayal. Betrayal and rescue. They were hidden by a peasant, another peasant betrayed them. They went to another place, a friend of the family would not let them in. They went to another place, a poor peasant took them in, protected them, gave them the mashed potatoes. It is all about that. It's actually not about the Germans. But if you look at how Poles and Ukrainians speak about that period, Poles and Ukrainians were not terribly interested in what was happening to the Jews. Because Poles and Ukrainians increasingly, as of 43 certainly, are much more interested in fighting each other.